So that is a bad motor mount. Welcome back to another episode of Steve wrenching on the car. So today I need to replace the passenger side engine mount. Basically it's showing a little signs of fatigue. Not so much inside the vehicle, although it does feel a little clunky at start. Normal driving, not so bad. The reason why it's not too bad is when you're under normal acceleration in drive, the engine wants to turn this way. So you'll feel more of the... So if the left was bad, the driver's side, then you would feel that more than you would feel the right. However, if you go in reverse and you hit the gas pretty hard, when your mount is bad on this side, it's going to want to lift the other direction just because of the gearing. So basically how I determined that the engine mount is bad is, well, I've already replaced the driver's side. I replaced that last year sometime, and when I pulled it out, it was leaking oil, or grease, oil or grease. It's pretty thick, brown, gross stuff. So the passenger side looks like I've got some grease coming out, and the bottom just kind of looks all like warped and cracked and stuff. I've already got a replacement right here. So this right here is the replacement. It's got a part number on it. It's not one of those, or maybe not. I'll write it in the description. Oh, there it is. Okay, we've got 68252522AA. If you haven't already figured out, so this has got the...
That thing got a HEMI? Yeah.
And this is a 2014 Overland. I've already got it up on ramps all the way around. And I've got the air ride suspension all the way up. So it makes it nice and easy to get under there with the creeper. You'll need to gain access to the underside, so you'll need to remove this tray. I've already done that from when I was working on doing my coolant. So that's already off. Let's get under there and take a look so I can show you my findings. Alright, so that right here, this is the engine mount. And you can see right in the back, you can see that it looks really oily and kind of sweaty looking. So it's not really wet around it, but oh, you can actually see that there's a little bit of something underneath. It's dripping down, and there's a lot of like dust and crud kind of stuck to it. And another thing that kind of got me interested in doing this particular replacement is because there's a lot of other things that is looking wet down here. You got the high pressure line for the power steering. You can just see how that is just all caked and gross. There's nothing over here that's leaking. And if you look up, everything else looks fine. There's nothing else showing signs of leaks. Up here, I did need to replace my oil pressure sensor, but that wasn't really too messy, and that wouldn't have made this really all this bad. That was one of my findings. And you can also see that it's gotten pretty gnarly all along here too, on this cross member, the subframe. So all that is just oil, grease that's from something, and it's like kind of like a brown color. It's not power steering fluid. Power steering fluid is going to be red because it uses automatic transmission fluid, you know, your typical ATF. But you'll see that right here I do have a little bit of rust and some slimy stuff. That's because I put on some fluid film. Fluid film just kind of seals it up and will prevent it from continuing to rust. You can also see that this is my other side. So this is the other bushing for the engine mount, and that looks fine. The underside, it looks kind of sweaty, looks kind of gross. I never did end up getting under there and cleaning all that when I replaced this last time. That kind of tells me that the motor mount on the other side is starting to go. My suggestion, before you get started, try to find and gather as many tools as you can that you know that you're going to need to get this job done. What you're going to need to do is you're going to need to gain access to... You're not going to need to take the intake off, I don't think. Actually, yes. Yes, you do. Because you need to gain access to remove the alternator. It's right down there. Because down deep down inside, that's the engine mount, and right through, let's see if I can focus, right down, of course it's not focusing on the area I wanted to. That's a heat shield that is currently sitting right above the engine mount, and underneath that heat shield is the bolt that mounts to the underside of the motor bracket, and there's a nut that you got to remove. So basically that needs to come off so you can get to that nut, and in order to get to this you got to remove your alternator, and in order to remove the alternator you need to loosen up your SERP belt. In order to remove your SERP belt you got to loosen it, so you got to pull off the intake. And even before you do all that, when you're doing anything electrical, especially something that's high voltage, or I should say high amperage, anything electrical, you're going to want to make sure that you disconnect your battery. So your battery, taking a look in the back seat, I've already done some preliminary work here. You lift up your compartment in the back seat. It's underneath your passenger seat. There, right there, you've got your negative terminal, so you got to undo that. That takes a 10mm, and you want to take off that one. So 10mm. So there's a lot of prep work that you need to do in order to get to all this. I even need to take off my air oil separator. If you don't know anything about these HEMIs, they love to pass oil up through the PCV. So this thing right here is pretty important to have. Otherwise you're just going to have tons of oil blow by going right into your intake manifold, and that's just going to gum everything up. It's going to be gross, lowers your mileage, reduces performance. Honestly, it's just a bad design of the PCV, but you can get by with an oil catch can. They do work. It fills up all the time. Get one. You'll be happy if you do. What I have figured out so far, the alternator takes, I believe it's a 15, and then on the back side there's a supporting, it might be the ground, I'm not entirely sure, can't really see it from up top. There's two bolts, there's one there, and that's the 15, and it goes all the way straight onto the block somewhere, and then you got another 15 that's basically in the same spot but on the underneath. Then there's an accessory wire that comes off of it, might be the ground, not entirely sure, but that takes a 14. So grab yourself some open-end wrenches if you got some that have the ratcheting on it. That'll save you a lot of headaches, because down there's not a whole ton of space. So I guess let's get started on this. So like I said before, undo the negative. So you want to get in here, just start loosening it up. You don't need to loosen it all the way, just enough that it comes loose. And then just put it off to the side. Now your ground is removed and you'll be safe for touching anything electrical. Next up, we are looking to loosen the serpentine belt so that we can get it off of the alternator. And in order to gain access to loosening the serpentine belt, you got the tensioner. It's right on the other side of this rad hose. So you got the radiator hose it's actually in the way. So you get a little clip. It's right here. There's a lift up tab on it, and then it just, you can see, it just slides right out. Lift it up and just kind of move it aside a little bit. Right down there, that is the tensioner for the serpentine belt. I don't have a great way to prop up the camera without it taking a dive, but basically get yourself a breaker bar. I've got myself a 2-footer, and you need yourself a 3/8 inch tip. Put that on there. Get that all the way down. Once you got it on there, push. Put my little fingers down there. Now you can see got it disconnected from the alternator. Excellent. Next up, gotta remove the air oil separator. Some people call them catch cans. They're the same thing. So just start wrenching it off. Oh, well, I should know this. I put this all together. I suppose you don't need to completely loosen everything. That just gets tucked away. Next up, alternator removal. It's probably 40 or 50 foot-pounds, would be my guess. When you're in tight areas and you want to really get things off fast and only a ratchet fits, get yourself one of these. It's an electric ratchet. Literally just get it right on there. And you just press a button. How easy is that? Seriously, get one of these. Okay, might have to get underneath the vehicle, loosen up the other one. Not really a whole ton of space in order to get the camera under here and myself. So I'm just gonna try to make do as much as I can. So the whole point of doing this is so that I can rotate it up top and be able to access the plugs that are on the back of it, which is a little bit easier. Back up top, I'm just gonna move this, kind of tuck it away. Alright, so my whole thought process behind this didn't really exactly come to fruition. There was another bolt underneath that I didn't think was connected. Turns out it was. So that was why I wasn't able to get this thing moving. But sorry, I didn't get that on camera because getting the camera repositioned under there wasn't exactly an easy task. So now we can get to the back side. I don't know what size that is. Are you kidding me? Maybe it's a 13. It's a 13. So that feels like it's on there pretty snug. I don't know if I'm missing something or if I just need to give it a little encouragement. Little encouragement. Let's see. I need to put the top bolt back in so that I can remove the bottom bolt and it won't fall on me. So just moving the alternator off to the side. So there's my heat shield. You can see there's the two bolts that I gotta loosen. Should be able to get in there now. Underneath it's like just underneath the heat shield, that's the top of the engine mount bolt. So that's what we gotta take out. Try buzzing them off with my electric. I don't know if I'll have room in there, but I'll try. Oh yeah. Try not to lose it, because who knows where that's gonna go. Probably in the land where the rest of all 10mm go. Oh, by the way, this takes a 10mm. So if you can manage to find a 10mm, because let's be honest, if you're working on a car, you know that 10mm, they just disappear. If you can manage to find a 10mm, then you're gonna be pretty lucky. I would almost consider myself pretty lucky. Okay, heat shield out. Alright, so next up, removal of the top part of the motor mount. Now, my plan is to not completely remove this just for ease. Oh my goodness. Make sure you eat your Wheaties. Also, you only get about 2 clicks worth, and then it breaks free. Not breaks free, loosens. Not too bad. So my thought is, get that loosened up, but then just snug it, because when you're underneath, you don't have a lot of room. So my thought is, get underneath, remove the 2 bolts, and then all you need to do is just raise the motor up just a tiny little bit, and then you should have room to maneuver to remove the stud, I think. So that's my thought. Okay, so I have no idea if this is gonna work. I've got all of these janky angles and stuff on my wrench, extensions, angles. It's probably gonna get all bent and twisted, given the fact that they all want to bend when torque's applied. I have no idea if this is gonna work, but it's the only way that I can reach this bolt. I can't really get to it from the underside. Oh, it's turning. Oh yeah. Oh, I did the other side off camera, by the way. There wasn't really all that many great angles that you could see. You ended up having to reach over the, there's a cross member down there. You had to reach over it and get your wrench above it. And there wasn't really much of an angle. If you end up doing this, you'll see what I mean. Also, they use thread locker on these. So you want to make sure that you get some Loctite thread locker, something along that line. Not sure what the green is. Green is probably a high strength thread locker, but you'll want to make sure that you get that installed with thread locker like that. At this point, I got the whole mount disconnected with the exception of the top. Just gotta lift the block up just a little bit, and then hopefully we can see some wiggle room. Alright, so you can see there, I got it out. How? Well, I was dealing with frustrations around when I was trying to lift the motor from the underside. What was happening is, as I was trying to lift the motor, when the vehicle was on the springs and struts, you know, under its own weight, so to speak, when I was lifting the motor, the whole vehicle was lifting up. So that wasn't going to work. So I needed to take the wheels off of the ground. So insert risky procedure here. I don't recommend this. I do a lot of shady stuff here at Steve's house. You can see I got jack stands. I set them up so that they're holding up on the front subframe. The red jack is lifting up the backside of the motor where it fits up against the transmission. And then this one is just ever so lightly pushing up on the underside of the engine. Just enough to give the lift that's needed to get the motor mount out. At this point, I just need to actually grab it, pull it out, and then installation is just the opposite. So that is a bad motor mount. Nice and greasy there. Probably a slow leak, but you can see how it's all cracked and all that. It's just a really slow leak. But at any rate, that right there is bad. This right here is good. Now, why does it bulge out like that? So I think my replacement on the right side is doing that too. I think that's just the nature of how these things sit. Got it out. Now I'm gonna put the new one back in.